What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Billy Collins.
MATJ.
And this is Magician.
And the Jock. With a local jock legend. We had Chase Martin on a week or so ago.
Yeah.
He's a younger legend, but we've got the man.
I coach Chase.
Yeah. So he's a
Mark
jock.
said, you can still call me young.
He's a jock raising jocks.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we got Mr. Mark Mansfield. Thank you, sir.
Welcome to the channel.
Nice to be here.
So, Mark, you are a real estate. I called you a guru. He was like, I don't know about a guru, but you've been in the game
For a while.
for a bit, and an entrepreneur.
Yes, sir.
You flip homes. I mean, you've kind of run the gambit when it comes to being a successful entrepreneur, and so that's why we kind of want the show.
Plus a coach too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man.
Guiding.
Local pillar. Yeah.
Wear a lot. Of hats. Serve as a county.
Was that because of sunburn?
Yeah, that's it. So serve as a county commissioner now, in addition to coaching. Own several Dairy Queens with partner Samer Hammond. Like I say, flip some houses. Have another partner I do a little bit of new construction with him.
Right on.
Sell houses and sell commercial property, and we kind of started out with Dairy Queens, kind of opening them up, buying some, going out of business.
Yeah.
Flipping them, operating them for money too. We've owned 2 convenience stores, small motel, a couple mobile home parks. Still own a couple. So
it's like the Moorhead Gary Vaynerchuk.
That's right.
just the hustle grind.
I
mentality.
won't use any of those language, those words today.
You're only about a foot and a half taller than Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah, that's it. That's all. But
so are you from here originally? I know you went to West Carteret.
My family is from here originally. When my mother went off to Carolina and she got married, they lived up in the Raleigh area for a while, and my parents got divorced at a pretty early age, and I spent summers down here with my grandparents, and then after that, my mother moved back home.
Okay.
So
she's originally.
Yeah, she went to Beaufort High School.
Wow.
So they've been here for a while.
yeah.
Beaufort. I'm guessing that turned into East Carteret.
It did. I got an aunt and 2 uncles. They all 3 went to East Carteret, but my mother went to Beaufort High School, and then.
So is Beaufort High School where Beaufort Elementary used to be?
Correct.
Yeah.
And then Moorhead High School was where Moorhead Elementary used to be, where the police station is now.
Yeah.
What was that? What's that? Is that abandoned place in the haunted school in Beaufort? Is that the one? Didn't it have like
Right there in the
asbestos or?
Yeah, I don't know about it being
mold
haunted or anything.
Oh, it is. I looked into it. I looked into it.
I went to 2nd grade there.
Matt's starting another show on this channel. It's called Paranormal.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just
He's got
there's a lot of interest.
Metal detectors and
You got to wear. That's the only place in the world I'd wear a mask is in that school.
So the Dairy Queen that we have up in Goldsboro, North Carolina, it's over off of Wayne Memorial Drive, talking about the paranormal. Obviously, everybody has cameras in all their locations today, whether it's a ring at your doorbell or whether it's your business and you're monitoring security or maybe even worker productivity. But
Maybe
you had some interest. Some camera was coming on. It's motion censored.
Yeah.
So it's coming on like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the mornings. They're like, all right, who's going back in the store trying to steal something? And we open up the video files, and if you're doing the paranormal, you've researched and seen the orbs, and there's these 2 or 3 orbs that come into the store.
No way.
Go through the wall, back into the stock room, go all around, and then go out the back wall. And I watched it, and I tried to come up with all kinds of
I just wanted a banana split.
That's right.
for how and I never could come up with anything. We've never really talked about it in public before because you don't want to think, that place is haunted. I don't want to go there. So you don't want that negative connotation. But it's never seen
it into an attraction.
Never seen it again. But
It definitely wasn't roaches, guys.
It looks like we know where our first episode.
That's right. Let's say the bad part is the people giving the sanitation grade saw that video and they're like, oh man.
You guys get 100 every time. We're not going to come in there.
That is crazy.
Yeah,
it was definitely crazy.
So the Dairy Queens, do you franchise them out to other people, or do you help them build?
We tried. Samer and I, Hammond is my partner, and we tried to buy. Dairy Queen was invented before franchising existed. So what a lot of the original contracts were license agreements. and they were pretty loose as to what you had to have. And really up until the 90s when we started doing Dairy Queens, for a long time, most of Eastern North Carolina, the franchise rights were owned by Mail Milk and Ice Cream. And when they sold out, they were selling basically as the license agreement, the sub-franchise from International Dairy Queen. And we wanted to try to buy it, but, International Dairy Queen bought it, who, Warren Buffett bought out. So that kind of, we didn't have quite
He is a
that.
big fan of ice cream.
We didn't quite have that deep
He's got
pockets.
options.
So,
He's got options for sure.
but we tried buying territory up in Nash County, and we just got outbid both times. But sometimes you buy stuff, and sometimes you maybe think the price is a little high, and you stay on the sidelines and shop for another deal.
Yeah.
I own the Dairy Queen in Havelock. Is that thing?
No, Dairy King.
No, Dairy King, not Dairy Queen. Dairy King in Havelock. Like,
That was that little stand right
that's
there.
that's just how the society's going, man. Women are trying to take over. So there's one Dairy King left. The rest are queens.
The rest of Queens.
So that's wild. So you now if we take a step back, you played basketball at West Carter. To those that don't know, he is 9 feet tall. No, but you're 6'5", and we actually have the picture.
That's when I had hair.
And
You can't even see it.
Chris, do you have the we want to
We'll
make
throw
him
it up there, yeah.
Okay, yeah, we have a special gift for you here in a little bit, but I'm looking at this picture. You're 6'5", and these guys, I mean, there's probably 3 or 4 that are as tall, if not taller.
Yeah, Sammy Gibson was about 6'8", and Tim Williams was 6'6", and Kevin Jones was about 6'4". So we had some size.
And so Chris, you were telling me before, part of the only West Carter championship team, right?
Only one ever won at West Carter High School. Moorhead High School, I think, won 1, and I think Beaufort High School won 3 or 4. And then several years back with Josh
That was
Key.
before segregation, so
Back
that doesn't count.
Well,
No,
I mean,
I'm
at
kidding.
some point, it
kidding.
could.
Yeah.
It could.
no, I'm messing. So, I mean, were you? So now you're coaching.
Yep, been coaching. This will be, obviously, if they don't fire me or anything, the coaching carousel's starting
No,
here
they
after
haven't seen
March
this
Madness,
show yet.
but I'll be back for my 24th year.
Holy cow!
Started with Mike Bradley, and then did it with him for 2 years, and he got the head football coaching job, and Mr. Patrick didn't want to have a head basketball coach and a head varsity
stretch a little
football
too
coach.
thin, yeah.
Little too thin, so he had to step down, and they brought in, I think it was Lee Davis.
Yeah.
And then he left and went to Croatan, and then they hired Craig McClanahan.
Yep.
And so I helped Mike 2 years, and then when he wasn't able to do it, I didn't want to go out and invite myself in with somebody else to, keep doing it. If the guy wanted me, I would have gone out and helped, and he didn't, and that was okay. I coached rec basketball and had
Yeah.
fun doing that. But then he left and went to Croatan when Croatan opened up, and Mr. Patrick hired
That was
Craig
in like the late '90s, right?
yeah.
When Croatan came
Craig,
out?
Craig,
Yeah.
Craig McClanahan and Todd Morgan. And Todd Morgan was coaching the JV boys, and Craig was coaching the varsity boys,
Yeah.
and Robert Lancaster was his assistant. And so the first year, they had plenty of help, and then Todd decided he was going to move up to the girls and became the varsity girls basketball coach. And at that point, Craig reached out to me and said, "Hey, you think you could coach JV boys for me and help Robert and I with varsity?" So I did 18 years as an assistant with Craig, and 16 years I coached JV boys. And then there was a period there when Brian Roberts, who actually played with me in the state championship team in 1985, he was coaching the girls, and he stepped down, and my daughter was playing at the time, and I'd been coaching a bunch of those girls in AAU basketball. So I said, well, I told Craig, I said, I'll do it until we can get somebody to, want to make sure we get somebody good. So I became the head varsity girls basketball coach, and we hired Lindsay Bizzetti at the time, which is now Hal.
Yeah.
And she was my assistant coach for 2 years. And
Matt
then,
Howe is legitimately 9 feet tall.
Yeah, that's
husband.
for real.
Big dude.
And so I stepped down after their junior year. I still helped Lindsay for a year there for the next 2 years as an assistant with her. Still, I was coaching JV boys too, and then still helping Craig with varsity boys. So I was sitting on the bench for 3 games a night for about 4 years.
That's a long 4 years.
Along with a couple practices a day.
Yeah.
So it was, and then after that, it kind of was, had a lot going on. I ran for the Board of Education. Did that for almost a full term before I switched over to running for county commissioner. I just was time conflict, so I stepped back from coaching the JV boys, and Franklin Rice kind of took them over. And I still helped Craig as an assistant coach. And then when Hurricane Florence came, I did not help that year because everything was so bad in the county.
Yeah.
And just was getting pulled in so many different directions. And then Craig decided he was going to retire, and he said, do you want to coach? I said, well, years ago I used to want your job. You hung around long enough. I've been doing this for 20 years. I think I think I'll retire with you. So they started looking for somebody, and I don't know. Long story short, it didn't work out. They didn't find anybody. He came back and said, will you do it for a couple of years? We got somebody we think wants to take over, and so I agreed to do it, and then that person took another job, and so I'm still doing it.
Yeah. Man.
So going into my 24th year.
That is, I mean, that's got to be, no one gets into JV basketball coaching for the money.
No, love of the game.
I guess you could work your way up if that was that ever an aspiration?
I think that's a step. I wanted the head coaching job when Mike Bradley stepped down.
But I mean, like going maybe to higher divisions.
But at that point in
levels.
time, they weren't hiring non-staff. Most of the coaches back then were teachers.
You had to like teach English or something.
Yeah, I love teachers to death. They do a great job, but they don't get paid enough.
We had I graduated from Swansboro. We had a soccer coach that, every year.
Legend.
Bob Room.
Yep.
Every year, national or state title, ranked number 8th in the nation.
Yeah. He did a great
job.
job.
For the school, they were like, well, this came down, you can't work for the school. And I'll never forget Mr. Beasley, our principal, goes, well, we need a ISS teacher.
That's right.
Bob's like, I'm there. So, yeah, but he backdoors.
Is that a school policy? There's not like a state mandate, right? That you have to teach to coach?
I don't think so. There may have been years ago in the very beginning, but obviously as the teacher market kind of ebbs and flows when the economy gets doing really good, and the private sector's just like with all government jobs. When private sector is doing great, the government struggles to keep people because it used to be the government jobs didn't pay as well. They had a great retirement and they had good benefits and
they pay off in 30 years.
They were stable, but they didn't get paid as much as the guy out working in the private sector. So a lot of times when the private sector is doing good, you see them stealing. You see teachers converting over into the private sector because they can just make so much more money.
Yeah. Holy cow! Yeah, because you think of the bigger programs, especially I'm thinking like Texas football. If you're a head football coach, you don't have much time. They're basically college coaches.
It used to be. Back during like when the financial, when the real estate kind of busted for the bubble bursting or whatnot. A lot of the state budgets had problems, so they started making cuts. And used to the head football coach at the high schools in the county was a 12-month paid position, and they cut those guys, and that really needs to be restored. They haven't done that. I don't know why. I still question that some, but I'm not on the Board of Education anymore, so I don't have any control how they do that.
Vote for Mark.
It's that's like you say, it's a full-time job. Yeah. And so instead of being a 10-month position, it was a 12-month position, so it gave them 2 more months of pay at least. But they mow the fields. They're responsible for the helmets and all the protocols with concussions. Everything in today's society has become so much more liability.
Yeah,
based planning, and you've got to make sure you're in paperwork and Coach Lancaster. That's one of the reasons he did the head football coach. Kind of turned the program around at West and had great years when he was doing it. But it was just that he liked coaching, and all the other stuff was just not fun.
Yeah,
there was a lot of other stuff as a head coach. That's for sure.
So you referenced a couple times public office. Running, I guess.
You're a bureaucrat.
Yeah, no, I'm not very smart, I guess.
I was gonna say he referenced a lot. You meet some people and we all think we're busy, but this is legitimately
busy.
When I say wear a lot of hats, I wasn't kidding.
I'm ready for a nap.
That's right.
I don't require a lot of sleep. That's the good thing.
He's on a Zoom meeting right now, actually, with myself. But How on
A
earth
mic can squeeze you guys in.
have you always been wired? Like I'm guessing, growing up, you played every sport. I mean, it was
No, I mean, I spent a lot of time on a basketball court.
that was it. Yeah, yeah.
I did play football one year, and that was probably more to get away from some friends, for things that may have been going on prior to football games, and you're a young kid doing stuff, mischievous stuff you shouldn't be doing.
Studying.
And I decided, I would listen to that parently advice and remove myself from the situation, and I said, I can't be involved in any of this if I'm on the football field. So
I'm guessing the coach. I mean, being 6'5", they probably recruiting you pretty hard.
they loved it, but Coach William wasn't too fond of it. So I got hurt in one game, and then I pretty much was injured and couldn't play at that point anyway. But he was probably not pushing me to make it back either. So
They probably looked at you because I'm sure you have great hands.
yeah, they were pretty good. They were
So
pretty good.
It's tough
Tight
being
end written all
being a
over.
tall.
Well, and I
taller
could jump. Well,
Yeah.
I'm actually having dinner this evening after this with a buddy of mine that played on the '84 team. Probably should have won a state championship in '84. '85, we probably got lucky. We only lost. We went 25-4 that year, and my senior year when we won it, we were 25-5. So we lost 5 games in the regular season and didn't lose at the end. And back in '84, we only lost 3 games, and 2 of those were to Kinston High School.
Yeah.
2 of the guys on that team that we lost to played in the NBA. Tony Dawson, who went to Florida State. But Florida State wasn't in the ACC back then, so nobody really heard that much about him when he went down to Florida. But Charles Shackelford went on to NC State and had a good career at State and played in the pros for about 10 years.
That's pretty tough. I mean, when there's 5 guys on the court and 2 of them end up in the
NBA
NBA
prospects.
That's
I think they've got the highest, probably per capita and of
kids.
anywhere in the nation. There's a great documentary on PBS they've done about that.
Jerry Stackhouse, right?
Oh, yeah.
Stackhouse
Yeah,
came
it's-
from
it's-
there.
Yeah,
Look, Cedric Maxwell played
Yeah.
for the Celtics. He played there.
and they still have Galaxy Sports in Kinston.
They
The old
sure
skating
do.
rink and bowling alley.
And Mitchell Wiggins, who played for the Houston Rockets, he actually played at North Lenore High School.
Okay.
So I mean, they've been rich
What
in
North and
basketball.
North, the Screaming Eagles or something like that.
It's either Eagles or Falcons. I can't.
Something.
One of those.
It's a bird.
Yeah,
That's right.
it's a bird.
I was about to say, currently you got Ingram.
Yeah,
He's playing right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brandon Ingram, yeah.
yeah. So it's been they've had a good lineage, but we lost to them twice that year, and then we lost in a game. I sprained my ankle, wasn't able to play down at Pender, and we lost at a. Matter of fact, Jeff Patton, who I was getting ready to talk about, he went up to block a shot and altered the shot. The horn went off when he was in the air. He fell down afterwards into the guy, which if the clock stopped, how could that be a foul? I mean, the game's over, but they called a foul and gave him 2 free throws. And
home cooking?
They beat us in overtime, so it was maybe
What?
maybe a little home cooking, but yeah, he went on. He was part of the reason he talked me into playing football. When we're talking about that, which I wouldn't. I was a basketball guy, not a football guy, but I was an athlete, like you said. And Jeff went on to play football at Duke. He had a scholarship offer from NC State for a 5-year deal, and he tried to work. Steve Spurrier was the coach at Duke then.
Yeah.
He tried to work a 5-year deal at Duke, and with the cost of Duke, they said no, buddy. All you're getting is a 4-year deal.
Yeah.
And I don't know why he was asking me my opinion of what he thought that he ought to do, because I don't know what he thought that I knew, but I guess I did know enough that if you graduate from Duke, there's a whole lot less people there, and that's going to be a smaller group you're going to be with. And for what all those people go on to do, you're never going to be unemployed. And that was the comment that I made him. And here we are 35 years later, and he's never been unemployed. But yeah, he was all ACC. He ended up getting hurt his freshman year and did get redshirted, so he still milked him out of 5 years of Duke. Double majored in math and history.
Jeez. Yeah, I remember I got recruited from Duke for a little while, and they were actually close to offering, and I was like, are they? I did the math on how much that scholarship would have been worth. And I'm like, I don't care if I've never won a game. I mean, Cutcliffe's was there when I was there.
Yeah.
He's still there, right?
I think he retired last year.
I think last year I think it was.
But I remember I took a visit there, and I'm like, where's the kicker or the punter? And I look, and there's like just one, like, dude looks like he's 40 in the jacuzzi, just like, What up, dude? I'm like, you're the kicker. He's like, yeah, man. Like, remember on the replacements where the kicker's like smoking a cigarette on the field? That's what he reminded me of. But they never called back.
But like I say, Steve Spurrier was the coach when he went there, so
Yeah.
which was pretty cool. That was and he's gone on to have a pretty good
Good career. Yeah.
career coaching.
So how do you find? So you're doing real estate too, which
Been selling real estate actively for about 20 years. I was at Gulf and Shore Properties for about 12 years. We did new construction and development, and actually was the broker in charge, sales manager, and then I sold also because it was a small office, which was enjoyed that. But when the real estate bubble burst, new construction kind of dried up and had to make a move and moved over to Remax. And I've been there for about 7 years now, and then I started out with my business partner Sammer Hamid at Hamid Realty.
Yeah.
I went to school with Amir and Gigi.
Yeah. So it's just it's real estate's paid for a lot of things, and ice cream cones have paid for a lot of things. So
It's paid for you to be able to coach. Is that?
that's right. That's right. I'm not doing the coaching for the money.
Blizzards.
Yeah. That's right. You get 2 commissions there.
Bribery gets you everywhere.
That's right.
So, I mean, basketball's obviously been probably the common denominator in your whole life. And then outside of basketball, I mean, it sounds like you've been around the game forever. Did you play in college?
Played at UNC Greensboro.
Oh, that's
so
right.
I left and went got recruited by a lot of schools. Didn't get the nod at any of the D1s that I was hoping to. But ended up going on to UNC Greensboro. I had several NAIA and Division II offers too, and some JUCO. But played at UNC Greensboro. Had a great time there. We had till a few years ago the winningest record in the history of the school and the highest winning percentage after they broke the winning record. Because obviously in today's world you play more games than we used to. So my senior year in high school we were 25-5, and I said my junior year we were 25-4. But this year's team at the high school, we made it to the Final Four. wasn't able to win a state championship, but we were 26-5. So obviously, that's probably the most.
You're talking about West Carter.
West Carteret
team.
High School.
Yeah, so
probably
we saw a couple of those guys on the golf course.
Yes.
They aren't small.
no. We had some size.
So
A
talk
big
to us
6'8"
about that.
kid, Jackson Ellensworth. He's been named second team All State. He made first team All District and was District Player of the Year. Just came out. I found out today. He was the Conference Player of the Year. Hoping that he'll make the East-West All-Star game.
Yeah.
Been nominated for that, and he has not. He's not committed yet. With COVID, everybody got an extra year eligibility, which is kind of for the guys that were seniors last year and guys that were seniors this year. It kind of makes it difficult recruiting because people aren't aging out.
2 classes coming out at once.
Right, and then you've got this interesting thing called the transfer portal, and people move around free agency all the time. So coaches are waiting to see, one, if somebody's going to leave their team and do they need to replace somebody, and then who's leaving somewhere else. Can I get somebody better out of the portal versus offering this high school senior who I don't know how he's going to do. So it'll be interesting to see. He's got options. He can probably go maybe play at a prep school again and reclass for a year, or he could potentially go to a junior college or a little bit smaller school than what he wants to, and then enter the portal after he proves that, hey, you should have taken me.
It's so funny that because my son and Jackson are really close. I mean, but they started playing soccer together when they were 4, so they've known each other forever. And he comes over to the house, and my son's like 5'7", and he stands next to
Jackson's
Jackson,
6'8".
and he's like, "You want to get something to eat?" Yeah. So
What's that movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny
Twins.
DeVito? Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, man. How was that run like? I mean, it's because you're.
It was good. We were fortunate enough.
How'd you guys do last year compared to
year before? Was shortened due to COVID, so we didn't get any non-conference games. We weren't able to play in any showcases or Christmas tournaments. So all we had was just the conference schedule, and then your chances of making the state playoffs last year were actually more limited because instead of a 64-team field, they only took a 32-team field. So we won the conference and got the automatic bid, made it into the state playoffs. The first round obviously was a bye because they alleviated the other 32 teams, so you're automatically starting in the second round. And we made it to the Final Four last year also.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, we were up by probably about 13, 14 points in the fourth quarter, and it just kind of somehow, they hit some big shots, and we missed some shots that we'd been making the whole game, and Gavin Gillikin actually took a shot at the end of the game that could have won the game, but he missed. It went into overtime, and they hit several more key buckets that put them up, and we came back, and we ended up losing. I think it was about 2 or 3 points there.
Which is weird for Gavin because he can shoot the lights out of anything.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And kids,
and that happens. I mean, that happened to us this year. We're in the Final Four playing Fayetteville 71st, and we shot free throws on the season 71% as a team. And that day we only shot 51%. We missed 17 free throws and lost the game by 4. So it was a heartbreaker.
Oh, man.
And we actually were at the line with 16 seconds to go. We got fouled on a 3-point shot, and if we'd have made all 3 free throws, it could have tied the game. I felt like if we'd made it into overtime, we probably would have won. But
it's like at some point these shots have to start falling.
You got to have a little bit of luck to win one. I mean, like
Sure.
I said, really my junior year we had the better team, but we won it my senior year. So it's just kind of the way the ball bounces, so to speak.
That's very true.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that Kentucky. Remember that Kentucky team that was undefeated, and I think they lost in the Final Four. So
Yeah, and some of the years that Duke, had their better records, they ended up getting knocked out, upset or whatnot. But the pretty cool thing about last year's Final Four was last year I had Jeff Lebo on my coaching staff as my assistant coach, and he when Hubert got the job at Carolina, he hired Jeff as his assistant coach, and
you couldn't keep him. You couldn't offer him enough.
I lost my guy. Turner could not match the offer.
Lebo was he was the head coach at ECU.
He was.
Right?
He was. And his son, Creighton, was getting up in age. Creighton is a sophomore or freshman, I guess, with the COVID year, what you call it. But he at Carolina, and that was part of the reason he stepped down from ECU to spend more time when his son was in high school playing. His son played at Rose his junior year, and then he transferred over to Greenfield. And Wilson has a really good program. They're perennially in the top 30 in the state in all classifications. Of course, they're a private school, and they obviously recruit. It's he wanted to be able to see him play. And then
would you like to talk about it?
we better not touch that. But he wanted to be with him, and so once he went into Carolina, he reached out to Michael Turner and wanted to know if he could. He has a house down here that he bought back when he was the coach at East Carolina, and he was still living in Greenville, and he was spending time back and forth between here and Greenville, and wanted to know if he could help. And obviously, who would not say yes to that? So he came in.
Did you ask him
started helping?
All right, what class do you teach?
he did detention as well.
He said, I don't drive a bus. He said, I don't teach, and a lot of other things that he didn't do. And we were like, okay, we can work with that. But Jeff and I actually, between my junior and senior year, we both went to 5-star basketball camp up in Pittsburgh. Harold Garfinkel used to run that camp. That was kind of like the Nike Elite or the Adidas camp today. And all the best players in the country were there. Danny Ferry, Chucky Brown was my roommate there. He played at NC State.
Yeah.
He actually won a world championship with Houston Rockets. So it was a pretty cool experience. Jeff didn't really remember me. I was just the guy wanting to play at Carolina, and he was the guy that got to play at Carolina.
Yeah. Was that the dream school, was Carolina?
Yeah, my parents both went there, so I kind of wanted to go there. I have somewhere in a box somewhere, probably up in storage in the attic. I have a rejection letter from Coach Smith, but that's about as close as. But
he rejected me.
He knows I exist.
I wanted to go to Florida State. That was my dream. I don't even.
Well,
didn't know I existed.
Virginia actively recruited me, and Dave Odom, when he was assistant there, actually attended the East Carteret game at East Carteret and actually did an in-home visit the next morning. And they offered me a walk-on spot, but it wasn't a guaranteed walk-on spot. And I guess, like you said earlier, I kind of love basketball. Always a basketball junkie, and I didn't want to go. Maybe not be on the team. So I chose.
You would have thought about it if Carolina gave you that deal. You'd be like, all right, maybe.
I mean, they
talked
to me about coming and doing the JV team, but you had to try out, and I mean, like most things in life, connections make a difference. So, if somebody's parents maybe gave $500,000 at Chapel Hill and they're maybe not as good, they may make the team and you may not. Yeah. So I was kind of, I'm not in for that. I want to know where I'm going, I'm going to play.
We get some juicy details.
Or so they claim, but let's ease up some of the restrictions and kind of go back to what we need to do. Stop being dependent.
I mean, I'm wholeheartedly on that.
Billy just said 9/11 was an inside job.
the
That's exactly, yeah. We'll play
I
it.
think I said that.
Yeah.
economics. I mean, that's the one thing I still like, and I still like math because you can't change it. Science has become they've politicized science.
Yeah.
You
Whoever you talk to is what
you can't change math. I mean, 1 + 3 is 4, 2 + 2 is 4, 0 + 4 is 4. I mean, 2 × 2 is 4. It's finite. You can only get there, but with the other stuff, and there's been this push. You have politicians always want to talk about raising minimum wage. You got to say the standard of living. Well, when minimum wage was $7.25 an hour at the Dairy Queen, we're paying $9-10 an hour for people who work. Now, for 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds who've never had a job before and you're training, they may have made $7.25 an hour. And then once they're there, they get a raise and they stay. They work their way up, and they make decent money. But what people don't understand is if you raise minimum wage, anybody who gets paid salary actually
loses.
They lose because their money shrinks. Everything goes up because you raise the minimum wage, but their salary didn't go up.
Yeah, they pretty much either
There's
cap.
gonna be a lot more of those touch screens.
And that's why you're checking yourself out at Walmart. I mean, it's because
I was going to say that because I was with the Walmart organization for 20 years, and we saw that they got a lot of pressure on they don't pay their people enough. And I'm like, we have cashiers that come in making $12 an hour. What the hell? Why? What do you mean we don't pay enough? So we had to boost it up. But
I love it. I love they use that term enough or fair share. It's like, can we define these things? If 15 an hour is good, why not 100 an hour? If 15's good, 100 should be great, right? Just do 100 an hour.
Well, you talk about Walmart, and obviously you work for them, so you know about them. But you say, hey, you're not paying your people enough, but I'll guarantee you Walmart made more millionaires in the United States
my dad was one of them.
than a lot of people.
Maybe
And
it
they've
skips a
made
generation.
way more millionaires
They sure did.
than the government's ever made.
Yeah, I mean that's if you think about it. Walmart's got the second largest computer system, other than the Pentagon, in the entire world.
It's got the largest trucking company in the world, in the country. It's Walmart.
And I think it's the only company within the past 40 years that is market-wise has split 4 times. So
Right.
when it gets to a certain amount, they split. That's when the millionaires started being.
And look at the people that just on the get open side. So you have they go in and they buy land from someone who they pay good money for, and then they bring in a builder. Usually they've got a guy traveling around doing it, but those guys, and then they've got subcontractors that work for all of them, and it's whether it's the HVAC guys that put all the. I mean, you know how many air conditioners you got to put in a Walmart?
For real.
And then you talk
massive.
about the refrigeration equipment for all the groceries, and but yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's talking points, and it's people playing on people that don't understand how things really work. But corporations are not bad. They provide a lot of great things, like Chris was saying, pharmaceuticals. I mean, without the medicines we have today, people wouldn't live as long.
Right.
They provide monetary means for people to make a living. And a lot of times, lower wage jobs are part-time jobs for somebody who's trying to get ahead. They may only work that job for 2 or 3 years till they save up to.
Because it prices out. Now, all of a sudden, you have to bring a certain level of productivity or they won't hire you. Which, I mean, there used to be gasoline attendants everywhere you went. There used to be more people checking in the movie theaters. All of those jobs, they're going to go. They're not going to just say,
Well,
all right, here's your...
Sheets is a convenience store. I mean, obviously we owned a couple convenience stores, not in the magnitude of Sheets, but they went to a food service model too, along with having a restaurant in the convenience store. You go up to a screen and punch the buttons. They don't have a
same thing with Wawa up in the Northeast.
Right, yeah.
It's my favorite place in the world.
Keith Moore, another talking about local town places. I mean, he was from Highway 55. He's the founder of Highway 55, and he started out when we started out with Dairy Queens. He bought out. It was Monk's.
Oh, okay.
It was Robbie Barrow had left. He was coaching football at ECU, and the head coach got a job in Tennessee, and he owned the Cubbies downtown. He sold it to his brother Dean, who took the Cubbies business over. He went out, and when he came back from, I guess the coaching staff got fired, Robbie came back, and with his other brother and his dad, they were going to franchise and do Monk's, and it was basically Cubbies or L's
Dean's
you
an
know,
interesting guy too.
or Highway 55.
Yeah.
They're all pretty similar. And you know, Keith's done a great job. You know, good leader, great concept. You know, Christian guy. But he's. I was reading the other day. He actually has a robot, and you know, he's testing it out in his locations, and the robot's a food runner.
You know what the bad part about Highway 55 is? They're building a new one.
They don't have one on Highway 70.
They do.
No bad joke like a dad joke.
They're going to have a drive-through. What the hell?
Well, Billy,
They
were
are
you
on
around
highway.
during COVID, dude? You weren't allowed to go inside.
I'm just saying. I mean, I'm going to be 400 pounds by just.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out. I'm assuming it is going to be a drive-through, but you know, they're a cook-to-order place, and you know, from the Dairy Queens, we've always been kind of a cook-to-order kind of too. We do some cook ahead of time, but it's
Now, cook to order, what does that mean? To just fresh?
Yeah, I mean, so you place the order, and they're putting a raw hamburger patty on the grill. Versus
It's not been
where
sitting under a heat
you-
lamp for
if you go to
3
McDonald's, it's run through a chain broiler, and it's been put in a holding oven to hold it at a certain temperature, and then
Tastes so
when
good, though.
And they're all cookie cutter.
when,
pretty
when
much,
yeah, when the order comes through, they slap it on a bun. They put everything that goes on there. They put it in what looks like a microwave, but they make microwaves now that you can. The ones in the restaurants, it won't make the bread hard like it does at home, and it won't wilt the lettuce or the tomato. And Dairy Queen's even gone to using some of that technology. They just have been forced to. But early on when we started with Dairy Queen's, it was cook to order. But when somebody's in the drive-thru and they order that, it takes so many minutes to cook that stuff to get it out, so it backs up the line. So that was my curiosity about Highway 55.
That's true. I didn't.
Are they going to do a mobile app and it's going to be a pickup window? Or are they
it's-
actually going to do a call-ins? Or are they actually going to do a drive-through? And that'll be interesting to see. But
I don't know, but I'll be there.
it'll definitely increase
It's going to
production.
eventually just be someone's going to drive by in a car and throw a burger in your mouth. You're just like, I don't even want to move. So we're going towards Wally. Remember Wally where they're on that ship and they're all just like,
They're all like all fat in the chair.
Starting out drive-throughs were probably 10% of your business. Then they went to 25% of your business. Then they went to a third of your business. And now, in most fast food places, they're more than half your business. Of course, you're seeing the same thing with debit cards and credit cards. Used to everybody pay cash, and now everything's moving to
except L's.
some type of card.
L's is holding strong.
Hey, look, cash is king.
But yeah, it's,
Especially when you have to claim it.
It'll be interesting to see how they handle that. But I'm sure they'll do a good job. And, like we talked about Chick-fil-A, they're the king of it.
Patrick and Laura, they got that thing on point.
Yeah.
But it's everywhere you go.
Patrick said, "Hey, I wish I never had to open up the lobby again. That's been great just doing it all
Yeah.
through drive-through." But it's
it's an experience. I mean, that's the biggest thing, at least with Chick-fil-A. I mean, it's
Well,
how may I help you versus what do you want? Or how may I serve you, I should say.
great customer service, a consistent product, a good value.
Quick efficiency.
$30 if you get a cookie. That's what I'm learning. That's
In speed,
You pay for it.
and that's what it's a
Yeah.
fast-paced society today.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to wait, and they can turn you in there and turn you out of there because their cook times, their stuff can hold longer and taste still fresh as compared to a hot dog. You can't let a hot dog sit somewhere too long. It's not.
they've done a
very good.
great. What if it's on that spinny thing?
Yeah, I was
though?
gonna say if it's on
If you're a
Ferris wheel,
Scotsman,
I remember Chris texted me. He said, "I just had a hot dog for breakfast." That was a pre-coffee decision.
I've eaten a lot of hot dogs in my life, but never off one of those rollers.
oh man.
man, you haven't lived.
Man, dude, that thing is like put that under a microscope.
I was gonna say you get the hot dog and the buns are either crispy or stale.
Yeah,
Haven't figured it out yet.
And
but
when it's 2 a.m. and you're drunk, you don't care.
That was and of course everything changes. You have corporate tell you what you have to do, so you have to do it. Used to you had the bun steamers, and that's kind of what Cubby's and L's started out with, and Highway 55. They steamed the bun so it's nice, warm, and soft.
Chick-fil-A also does really good cater. Like they're one of the few. You don't ever go to a charity golf tournament where McDonald's is cater it, right? It's always Chick-fil-A.
It's
They
because
got
of
a basic menu.
It's
and
a basic menu and a whole well, and you can do it. I mean, how many times have you gone to McDonald's or Wendy's or even Dairy Queen and you get an order and your fries aren't fresh?
Dairy Queen especially.
There's nothing worse than not fresh fries. So no, we
Yeah.
always try to get them as fresh as we can there at the DQ because I know what it means to not get
Mark's like, I hate an old ass fry.
you gotta have good hot fries.
Wasn't that Jim Gaffigan? He did a bit on McDonald's and how
that's
how, when you like reheat McDonald's fries, it tastes like packing peanuts. Like it's just maybe you get a bonus fry. Yeah. So a big thing we talk about on the show a lot is be great at what you're good at. And that's like, I think your only chance to be great is you got to start it good, right? We're always taught to work on your weaknesses, but usually you'll go from bad to not as bad versus great to good. I'm sorry, good to great. You've obviously excelled at a ton of different things. What do you think is when did you tap into that to like kind of started to get your groove? Remember you were saying Curtis Struck was like, I can't wait for y'all boys to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like when did you start to figure it out?
I mean, I started reading, Napoleon Hill, Zig Ziglar, Dale Carnegie. My father was in insurance sales, and so
that's big on
even though
motivation.
my parents were divorced, I spent time with him, and he was always and before they were divorced and when they lived together, I mean, he would take me to where I would daycare, so to speak. It wasn't really what it is today, but you go stay with somebody while they go to work, and he would always be talking about what you do. And I think I was 3 years old and I could get my way around Raleigh because he would always go a different way and teach me. Now I probably couldn't do that now with the way it's grown, but back then I could. But he was always like how we do, or being positive and coaching you up to hopefully to help you be successful. And he planted some good seeds, and lucky I sowed those seeds, and I've kind of been able to reap the rewards. But I mean, that's you gotta. I used to tell all the time coaching. It's one of my favorite lines, and I don't know who I borrowed it from or stole it from, but there's only one place success comes before work.
Cafeteria?
The dictionary.
Dictionary. Oh, that's right.
I remember that one. The year I practiced.
That is
40
true.
years.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, you can. A lot of people have a lot of God-given talent.
Yeah.
And God-given talent's great, but nothing.
It can almost be a gift and a curse. Yeah.
Nothing definitely can be a curse sometimes because people they don't work. And I mean, somebody somewhere in this world is working, and if you're not working or practicing as much as they are, they may end up being better than you are.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's always been what's driven me is, you may be better than me, but are you going to outwork me?
Control what you can control. I think
yeah.
Tim Tebow says that. What hard work beats talent when talent won't work hard.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, and time is finite. I mean, you can't
Right.
create any more hours in a day, but you can be more efficient with your time and prioritize. I mean, I constantly A list, B list, C list, D list stuff. And, it's the old 80-20 rule.
Right.
May even be 90-10 now, but you work on that 10 or 20% that's going to be the most effective that day to produce whatever your goal is.
Yeah.
Anybody who's been in business or if you've been in athletics, I mean, athletics is great not for playing sports. It's great for team building. It's great for learning roles. Everybody wants to be the superstar, but, we didn't win a state championship without Brian Roberts.
Right.
I mean, you everybody plays their part on the team, and today everybody just wants to play one spot. There can only be one Michael Jordan, one Kobe Bryant, one LeBron James, but they can't win championships without those other guys. Michael Jordan didn't win championships when he first got in the NBA. I mean, he scored 60-some points in a game and would lose the game.
To get a supporting cast.
You got to have a team. It's not. I mean, individuality is great if you're in a shooting contest or in a swimming event or maybe wrestling when it's mano on mano. But most things in life, it doesn't matter whether it's a marriage, whether it's a family, whether it's at your work, whether it's at church. I mean, you've got to have a team, and that's what it's all based and built around is teams. And so I learned those fundamentals of hard work through athletics, and I learned how to get along with others. I got kind of disgusted back in the early 90s when, there was this mindset of everybody's going to get a trophy.
Yeah.
And I think that has put us where we are today in society.
Oh, 100%. We talked about that we've had multiple athletes on here talking about that very thing. It's like, yeah, everybody gets a trophy, but no one actually knows what it feels like to lose. And when you don't lose, see, trophy.
Jay Abrams has written some good books, and I was fortunate enough went to a leadership conference in Chicago for the National Association of Realtors, and talking about him being lucky.
Billion-dollar copywriter, Jay Abrams.
I got lucky that the two featured speakers were Jay Abraham and Dick Vitale. So as a sports guy, going to a realtor
Talk about
convention,
opposite ends of the energy level. I mean, Dickie V.
But it was great to hear them tell the stories and talk about it. But one of the things that caught me the most by Jay Abrams when he talked about doing the autobiography on Walter Payton and John Wooden and Michael Jordan, he said the thing that he has come to realize from his research for the great ones, it's not the will to win. It's the desire and hate to lose.
And if you don't lose, you don't get that.
Right.
I tell people all the time, if you don't lose, you don't know how great winning feels.
Right. So I mean, last year when we got eliminated in the Final Four, our goal was to make it back and win the state championship this year. Now we stumbled again, and so you know what our goal is going to be next year? To make it back to the Final Four and win the state championship next year. Now, whether you do that, who knows? It's always possible. But if you don't work, it's not going to be. And if you don't set your goals high, where are you going to end up? So it's always set your goals high. If you don't get there, you're going to be way better than you did if you didn't set any.
I think that's what Les Brown says that. Like the problem isn't that people set their goals too high and don't hit it. It's they set them too low and they do hit them.
Right.
So like, yeah, I mean, I love talking to coaches. I've been through so many talks with. I had Skip Holtz. He would always say it's never as good as it seems, never as bad as it seems, and he always talk about if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. There is no. If you take a day off, someone else did.
If you're ripe, you're rotten. You got to be green and growing.
What about this one, Chris? Dog in the hunt ain't got no fleas.
Dog in the hunt ain't got no fleas.
That's it.
And that wraps up the bumper sticker.
That's right. Man. Yeah. So are you still, because I'm big in the, I think a lot of young men, because men, we have the burden of performance, right? We have the burden, and a lot of guys are kind of, especially nowadays, it takes longer today for a man to grow into what he's going to be versus 50, 60, 70 years ago. You had to be like around 22, 23. And
yeah, the older you get, the wiser you get. I mean, I serve as a county commissioner with one of the other commissioners is Robin Comer, and he always talks about his dad Harold, and they've been real successful with real estate development. They owned a sawmill back in Goldsboro before they moved down here, and they've owned a bunch of RV parks, and they just sold the one down at White Oak Shores within the past year for a good amount of money, and did pretty good. And but he always said, I can't catch my dad. Until I've lived that 20 years longer, I'm never going to have the experience that he has. So he's always going to be ahead of me.
He's never taken his foot off the gas.
The only way, he's looking to buy some land and maybe even do another RV park so his dad can get on a tractor and get out there and push the stuff and create it. They actually would buy land, raw land, and construct them and build them. So they put in the sewer systems, the wells, the water lines, the roads, the sites. And that's one of the great things about real estate. I always like the Dairy Queens because people are in and out, and you see so many people on a daily basis because people coming in, and I like people. So I mean that keeps you happy. But the only thing about being a Dairy Queen, I always felt like I lived in a fishbowl. I'm there in the bowl, and people come and go all day, and I'm stuck there. But the great thing about real estate is you're out and about, and you meet tons of different people, and like we're talking now about different experiences and different people you've talked to, you get to hear about those experiences. And the best way to learn is from other people.
Mm-hmm. I think we've learned a ton from what we've been doing for the past eight months.
Yeah.
Like
and when we were kind of talking before the show started, the next best way to learn is by failing.
Yeah.
Which is actually losing. So I mean, you've got to lose to win.
Yeah.
And if you've never lost, when you get into a bad situation, you don't know how to handle it. And that's how a lot of championships are lost, because you have dominant teams that win so much, and then they get in a tight game situation where they hadn't been there all year.
Yeah, wins hide the mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, it's so you know, it's that thing. You know, complacency is a cancer. I mean, it really is, and you've got to have some type of self motivation. You've got to have some drive. And there's plenty of podcasts out there today you can listen that there's people, you know, like you talked about Gary Vaynerchuk. I mean, he will fire you up and drop the F-bomb, but he's going to tell you how you can market your business and become a millionaire.
Yep.
And it's through social media and all the other stuff.
Instagram is going to change the world. He's always like making some like.
And
I was all about NFTs.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's like, if you don't buy NFTs,
But I mean, I was at a Remax.
you better get on it now.
How about he's just going through a divorce. His wife's about to come out with 80 mil.
That's how you know you're balling.
That's how you know.
That's definitely.
I
Not
say
quite
cheap-
up to the Bezos.
So I say cheaper to keep her. But anyway, sorry.
But I mean, I was at a Remax convention, and he was one of the keynote speakers, and he was talking about, obviously, he started with early on with Facebook and Twitter, and then he evolved into Instagram and TikTok, and he's found a way to evolve and teach people how to use social media to help their businesses and grow them. But he was right. I mean, he talked about hey, look, traditional media is going to be on the decline. I mean, print media, look at the newspaper today. Yeah, it's way thinner than what it was. I mean, and, TV stations. Used to, the big three dominated the market and controlled everything. And now with streaming, I mean, it's,
What's the point?
So, I mean, it's making certain cheap advertising you used to get cost more. But at the end of the day, if you're going to be in business, you got to market and advertise. You got to have your light on. You got to have your flashing signal. How are you going to grow your business?
We've talked about that. We've heard of the obesity epidemic, but for business people, there's the obscurity epidemic. Like half the battle is like, hey, here's what I do for a living.
Right.
Like, it's not so much I'm better than that guy. It is a competition for attention.
Yeah, and Gary Vee does. He's really good at paying attention to attention, whatever's hot at that point. In your fields of Dairy Queens, do you ever kind of focus, because you do a lot of things? Are you looking for where to place that attention, or you just kind of stay within your lane of?
Well, I mean, obviously, like most people, we've all read about Donald Trump and Warren Buffett and Carl Icahn and T. Boone Pickens, and you read about all these successful people that invested money, and from reading their books and listening to those guys talk, and then from when we first started out in the Dairy Queen business, I mean, I could make that Dairy Queen make a lot of money. And I was excelling, and I wanted to be great at it. But then I stepped back and looked at the big picture. Do I want to be great at this one little thing, or do I want to expand and grow? And I may not be great, but I may be good or really good. And now I'm going to take the amount of money at the bottom that I'm making, and I'm going to multiply it by 5 or 10 or however many stores we had at the time versus that great amount of one. And the multiple amounts, even though you weren't great, added up to more money. And I don't know about you guys, but if I'm going to work, I want to try to make as much as I can make.
Yeah. And the problem, I think nowadays, it's so it's in vogue to be an entrepreneur, and we want to skip right to multiple streams of income. It's like, no, you had to figure out, you had to ball out at one before you could ball out at 10.
It's hard to get there. I mean, I started out, I think the first program I may have bought was Carlton Sheets. I don't know if you remember him. He was the infomercial guy on real estate and buying, and how you do it and getting paid. And then later on, I moved to Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and
that's the quadrant.
And I've pretty much lived that kind of philosophy there, and it's how I got going and getting those quadrants and that multi-level of building up and having multiple streams of income, and so you're not so dependent on one thing. Real estate really got really good back in the early 2000s, 04, 05, 06. I was making more money than I thought I ever could make, and I told my wife, I said, why would anybody want to go to medical school when you could do this? Well, in 08, I told her I know why they went to medical school, because real estate had dried up and there was nothing happening, but people were still going to the hospital. So, but like I say, you live and you learn, you adapt, and you have to adjust. I mean, that during that market, I mean, I didn't. There are a lot of people that lost some stuff, either through foreclosure or short sale, or where they were late on payments and may have dinged their credit. And it got back to that hard work thing again. I busted. I may have sold a few things and liquidated some stuff, but I tightened the belt up and I worked harder.
Well, so my uncle, we mentioned earlier, he's been in for almost 30 years now, but he said real estate has a tendency of cleaning its industry up. Like, if you remember 2004 through 2006, everyone was a real estate agent. Everybody wanted to be a flipper and flip homes and stuff. Clean that shit up really quick.
Real quick. Now, and we're probably back there now. The amount of agents that's increased the market. Right now, if the hard part is finding a listing. If you can find a listing, it'll sell. Yeah. I mean, in 2008 and in 2010, you had 30 listings, but you didn't have any buyers, so you had to go sell a house. And so it was.
Does it feel like order taking now, pretty much, because how quickly things are going?
Well, not really, because sometimes you can write 5 or 6 offers, maybe 10 offers on different properties, and your client doesn't get it. Mm-hmm. So if you're the listing agent, you've got 10 offers. The sale's going through. So now it's kind of. I was reading today's news out is pending sales are down. But they're not down because of activity. They're down because of inventory.
It's an inventory problem, yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. I mean, if you're in sales, and it doesn't matter what it is, you can sell paper, you can sell beer, you can sell insurance, you can sell, stocks, you can sell real estate.
Magician in the jock shirts, if anyone wants to buy one.
But
that bubble popped about 10 years ago.
And I borrowed this line from somebody too, but it's a full contact sport.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not making contacts, if you're not on the phone making dials, if you're not talking to people, if you're not networking, if you're not out there hustling, you're going to starve.
Yeah, you that was sprint to stay still. Yeah,
that was one of the things my dad taught me early on. He said, we talked about, when you're ripe, you're rotten, and when you're green, you're growing. Well, the minute you stop shaving, you become a bum. And that's like that.
Can you look at him when you say that? You look right at me. I'm like, I'm going right.
No. You guys are still shaving. You're just not shaving it all off. My head would be called shaving it all off. But that's because it's not all hair everywhere up there.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing about out there getting with people. If you're in sales, the minute you stop prospecting is like shaving. Mm-hmm. The minute you stop prospecting, you become a bum.
Well, they say when you make a sale, you just lost your best prospect. So. Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's why you got to have a CRM and you got to have contact management. And you got to stay with people. I mean, it doesn't matter what the industry is. If I'm selling you ice cream cone, you may buy another ice cream cone in 2 days or 5 days or a week. If I'm selling you a car like Josh Bell, the king of Honda, we may maybe 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years. But there's a cycle, and that person's they're gonna buy another car. Question is, will they buy it from Josh?
Right.
Well, if he stays in contact with them, more than likely, or they feel like they got a good deal or a good value, they'll come back. And it's the same thing no matter what you're selling. If you're selling construction equipment or if you're selling, I always joke that I could sell frozen polar bear crap in Alaska.
It's a big market for that.
I was about to say, I always said I feel like I could sell crap as long as people knew they were buying crap.
Yeah.
Because that's the last thing.
Because there's always a market for something.
Yeah.
Right. Well, as long as you're honest. I mean, that's the other thing. If people trust you and like you, and you're gonna be honest. I mean, and really you're helping people. I mean, that's the thing that I love about real estate, because I'm not selling anybody a house. I mean, you either want to buy a house or you don't want to buy a house. You're not gonna come to me and I'm gonna make you buy a house. I mean, buying a house is, for most people, is the largest one single investment they'll ever make in their life.
Yeah.
That's the most amount of money. Now, they may accumulate a portfolio through their 401k or through their IRA or through the investments that they make.
You're not buying 1% of a house for every month for 30 years.
Right.
Yeah.
But for most people, the largest single purchase, the largest single investment, and that's what buying a house is to me. It's an investment. That's how I got into flipping. You live there 2 years, you sell it, and it's tax-free. The next one, you got to stay there for 3 years. Right now, the tax law says you can do 2 every 5 years or 1 every 3 years. And then there's other vehicles where you can do what's called a 1031 exchange. So when you buy a commercial property or a rental property, you buy the house, you use it, you depreciate it, you rent it out, and then when the values go up, you sell it But instead of just selling it to the person, you do a 1031 exchange, so that defers the gain. So your basis is in your original property, and as long as you keep 1031 in it, you're not paying any tax.
The way to win that game is death, essentially, because of the step up in basis.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean,
If they get rid of that, there's gonna be a lot of.
Yeah, look, I tell people all the time, none of us like taxes, but taxes. If we didn't have taxes, we wouldn't have streets and roads. If we didn't have streets and roads, we wouldn't have businesses. So, I mean, sometimes you've had some politicians say about, well, the government helped you or built your business. No, they didn't. You went out and did it. But they do certain things that assist in the process because, one person, we can't pave streets. It's got to be a collective of everybody paying. And then it gets back into the talk about equal. I mean, there is no equal in life, guys. I don't know why people want to talk about that all the time, but, they want to, it's always transcending whether it, I don't know you could ever determine who's been discriminated against the worst, but the American Indians got to be one of the top. Mm-hmm. But where do you hear anything about those guys? And then, if it is equal, then why have we got a box we all check on when we're filling something out? Why is it got to be with what it is? If it's equal, it's all on our merits.
Right.
And that's what sports is about.
I was going to say, because
sports
it's one of the last places where meritocracy still exists.
Right.
Sports.
Let's get. You were fortunate enough and lucky enough to get in the NFL, but let's face it, I wasn't going to make it in the NFL. I wasn't. I didn't work that hard to play that sport. So if you don't go out and work and practice and do the things and get in the gym, it's not going to happen. But in life, everybody wants something to be given to them, and you're just not. You're going to get what you ask for. Anthony Robbins was at a big thing walking out of a convention center or a coliseum where he'd done a big speaking engagement. He walks out and there's a homeless guy on the street. And, Mr. Robbins, can you give me a quarter? He reaches in his pocket and pulls out a wad of cash and flips through all the hundreds, and so the guy can see it, and reaches back in his pocket and gets the quarter and puts it in the guy's cup. He says, "There you go." He said, "I'm going to teach you something right here. Remember in life, you get what you ask for. Maybe you should have asked for 100.
He's like, $250,000 is what I said.
It's like you assumed that.
Daggone it.
So, there are a lot of different things in life that make people happy. It's not all about money. You can't buy your health. So, if you have a family member who has bad health, money can't get you out of that situation. So, it's nice to, like you say, to set goals and be successful and do that. But, I've always looked at myself, talking about equal, that no matter what you're doing, you're no better than the next guy. Mm-hmm. It's just all about experience and, what you choose to do. There's a lot of pathways in this world. And, I can guarantee you one thing, you're going to leave this world with what you came into it with it. Yep. You're not carrying any of it with you. Nope. So, if we all try to make the world a better place, it can make a difference. And that's servant leadership. And that's the thing about coaching. I paid for my school, so I try to give back to help another kid maybe have that opportunity, because my parents were divorced at a young age in the 70s, early 70s, when women maybe got paid about a third is what a man did. My mom worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table for me to be able to eat. You can see I'm big and like to eat.
That's a lot of food for 6'5".
But so it just all changes. We're dealing with stuff now. that you didn't deal with before. You talk about women's rights. We're finally getting where we're getting women's rights, and now all of a sudden we got this transsexual issue.
Oh yeah.
Where a man's decided he wants to be a woman so he can win a national championship. I don't know what's right and what's wrong, but
I think that's wrong. If you go from 462 to 1.
Women have made it so far with Title IX, and now because we've become a woke world as to what we're going to do. I think we should be inclusive and everybody should be treated good.
Yeah.
But the level of good you get treated, it really is going to determine. It's like we talk about famous athletes. You think we're getting treated like Michael Jordan does? No.
But we also don't bring an ounce of the value Michael Jordan brings. Put that name. So it is all relative.
It's all relative. But at the end of the day, we're still all either whatever we are, people, and we're all the same, and we're all going to leave, like I said, with the same. So everybody has a bad day. Life's a choice. You either choose to have a good one or a bad one. Bad things happen to good people all the time.
What is it? What is
Successful people look at the positive.
Like,
sometimes the people that don't do as well tend to dwell on the negative and get caught.
Yeah.
what does Zig Ziglar say? I decided a long time ago that today would be a good day. So
Yeah, I mean, it's how true is that statement?
it's
Like the infamous words from Mr. Joe Dirt. Life's like a garden. Dig it,
Dig
watch
it.
it grow.
That's it. So, but
I was going to say, I do have one question for you. And it's kind of bringing it back to where you said you guys have been to 2 Final Fours in a row.
yes, sir.
You know, so it's kind of defining success. So how would you define success? You know, like is success reaching it to, I guess, is it living up to the amount of potential that you have? You know, because let's say next year's team doesn't go to the Final Four. Are they less successful than this year's team?
I mean, success to me is if I can teach basketball and kids learn the game and learn the fundamentals, and one day they grow up and they have kids and they coach their kids and teach them the game and carry on the evolution of the game. That's success, because obviously you're competing to win, and to win is a goal, and nobody likes to lose, but sometimes you're in situations, depending upon what they are, that it may not end up as well. But yeah, I mean, that doesn't mean you're not successful because you weren't there. You just didn't win as well. There are teams that are championship teams, and then there's teams but they're still all teams. They still all, for the most part, a lot of times coaches get criticized, but I mean, they wouldn't be coaching if they didn't have some level of experience. There are instances where not, but for the most part, I mean, so yeah, I mean, I was fortunate enough to play in 2 Final Fours. I've been fortunate enough to coach in 2 Final Fours, but I think in all my years that I've been coaching, and I've been the head coach, whether it was JV boys basketball or varsity girls or varsity boys, I've had 3 losing seasons. And you mentioned the podcast with Chase Martin. Chase was on one of those teams, but they only won like 5 games the year before, and we were really close to having a winning season. And then there's a couple of years where we came up short, but it wasn't for lack of talent. It was for lack of playing together. And it's just like I take everything back to business and sports. I mean, you gotta have a goal, you have to have a plan, and you have to execute it. And then you gotta have teamwork. If you're all working in a different direction, the outcome's not gonna be what you want. Doesn't mean you may not get there, but it's either gonna take you longer, or it's gonna cost you more, or something's not gonna be as good. So, when you get to the Final Four, I mean, that is definitely you're getting to the top of the mountain. I mean, Coach K described it the other day. I thought the best was, he talked about crossing the bridge. When you make it to the Final Four, you've crossed the bridge. Not that many teams ever get to play in a Final Four. So to have played in 2 as a player and then now coached in 2. But my coach, he was at Newport High School, and he won a state championship as a player at Newport High School. And then he won one as a coach with me. So my goal was to win a state championship as a player and
One as a coach.
And so I hadn't made it, Chris. So I hope that doesn't define success.
Yeah, I've heard somewhere. I think Grant Cardone talks about success can be measured by where you are and where your potential. How are you shrinking that gap? Because potential can be a gift and a curse too.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of very, very talented guys, highly intellectual guys who they've heard all their life you could do whatever you want. And then they're always chasing potential, whereas you see someone else that puts their head down because it's really simple. It's consistency is a huge thing over time, like working out. It's the compound effect matched with talent. Over a sustained period of time. And
well, I mean,
we're in a microwave generation.
My oldest daughter graduated with Chris, and she went to work right out of college with Northwestern Mutual. She was recruiting insurance brokers, and one of the big things that when they recruited agents that they were looking for was ex-military and ex-athletes, because they understand the value and purpose of training, they understand the value and purpose of goals, and they understand work ethic. And so they found. Northwestern Mutual has, and maybe that's a trade secret, I don't know, but they went out and recruited a lot of athletes and a lot of former military people because they made more success stories in their business for what their plan was.
For the record, never got a call. So
She was a great recruiter.
she's
very successful
she's a great judge of character. Essentially.
So we talked about Josh Bell earlier, King of Honda.
One of my players.
Hondas sell themselves. That's what Josh said.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly.
That's exactly.
That's what his favorite
He's
thing.
so mad. But he talked about the one thing: if he got fired tomorrow, or if something happened, he had to leave, he would grab his list of clients. If the apocalypse happened tomorrow, what would be the one thing that you would?
Maybe not the
Sure.
apocalypse. Maybe
Well,
if it became illegal to sell real estate.
Well, I couldn't think of another word because Mark does everything.
If everyone's dead.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
a job you don't somehow qualify for.
I mean, obviously, everybody, no matter who you are, no matter what you do, what job you do, it all has to do with your friends. Without your friends, you without your family and your friends, none of us will be where we are today. So, that's why, to me, honesty and integrity means so much because, you can't, well, I guess you can change your name. I guess you can change everything these days. But
Ocho Cinco.
For the most part, you
You can grow long hair and be a woman.
Yes, but your reputation, really, you got to make sure you keep that intact. So if something ever went wrong, one of the things my father used to tell me was, you can take all the money away from the people who have it today, and give it to all the people who don't have money today, and in 5 years, those people who had all the money will have it back, because they know how they got it. Now, the people that inherited it, he said, maybe not, but the ones that went out and worked and created it, they'll get it back because they know how they did
know
it.
the formula.
How to attract it.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I heard recently money is kind of like water, right? It's moving in different locations, and some people just know how to get between it and wherever it's moving. So it's instead of fighting it, having a revolution, you just see where money's moving and get between it.
I need to get in that boat.
It is moving. It is moving directly away from
We can do
podcasting.
cameras.
But well, man, this has been awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you so much for.
I'll have to come back. We talked about a
Yeah.
multitude of things, but I don't know we really hit on any things that we talked
I
about
wanted
talking
to
about.
remind you, we've actually found your hair from that picture.
That looks like a live animal.
I've got a 3D printer. And
So
this is the only state championship in West Carter.
There you go. There you go.
It's
One
not
last
aged.
question before we head out. Back when you had luscious hair, in high school, what would you tell that Mark? If you could go back and tell him anything, what would you tell him?
That's a very interesting question. I don't know. I've learned a lot of lessons through life. I don't know that I could tell him everything that he needed to hear.
And would he listen?
Well, exactly. Most younger people. You have that talent, or you've worked hard and you've gotten good. You think, well, I don't need to listen to that guy, and that's probably the hardest thing about coaching today. At 55, I can't demonstrate and show how to do it anymore where it's effective. But when I first started out, when Chase Martin was playing my first year, they went to the Sports Center and saw me playing basketball. I was staying on the court the whole time because I kept winning every game before. And it didn't really matter who was playing with me. Now, every now and then you lose. You get on a team where somebody else has got, but, there's a lot of competition in basketball. We played the ACC All-Stars a bunch when they bring those barnstorming games, but in one game we almost beat them and lost to them by one, and then one year we were actually fortunate enough to beat them by one. And I was getting older then and couldn't do as much, and I subbed myself out for some of the younger, quicker guys to get in there. But I think that's part of being a leader too. You got to know when to hold on to the reins and when to pass them, and it's just I don't know if there's ever really a right answer. Just sometimes there's a better answer. So that's probably what I would tell myself. Don't worry so much about being right. Just be like Nike and just do it.
Pretty awesome. Nike, if you want to sponsor this channel,
Just do it, Nike.
Get out your checkbook.
Just do
do
it.
it. So, Mark, thank you so much for coming in. This has been a
Yes, sir.
pleasure to meet you, have you come in, dropping some knowledge on us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a great time.
Yeah. Guys, do us a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button.
Smash the like button.
And we'll see you on the next episode.
Peace.
Good night.